I've been asked a couple of times recently how various projects that people have seen in other videos have done. And I suppose I don't do many follow-up videos, so I'm going to combine quite a few of the former projects into this video. Normally I tend to do videos on a specific subject and try and stick to that. This is going to be jumping all over the place, so if you haven't seen much of our stuff, this might not be the first video that's a good idea to watch, but it's going to be a bit more like a vlog style video, which we don't generally do. So anyway, I'll show you around some of the projects. The blossom on the crab apple tree, absolutely beautiful. I really like this shade, really cool. So I'm on the edge of the car park. Well, actually, I'll just show you this quickly. The signage is new. That was an offcut from the slab that's gone onto the top of the rocket mass heater, and I was stood there with an angle grinder in my hand and thought, yeah, I bet I could make a sign with that. So I've done a few of them. But so yeah, the red willow fedge. Now, last year this should have done a huge amount, but we had a massive drought. It survived, and that's good enough for me. But you can see they're just high enough now that what I want to do is bring them over at an angle and wrap them around the wire. I'll probably put a second wire in to make it easier, but you can see just how many of them are coming up. When some of them are approaching it, but some are pretty much at the height. So I can make a start on doing this properly this year and really start to train it, and that'd be really cool. So they're coming on nicely and mostly have survived really well. And this winter again, I'll be able to take quite a few cuttings off these and fill in any gaps, because there's a few places where it's been, you know, quite a few deaths. It's just the nature of it. It's not a big deal. It's a long-term project really. And same thing with these willow arches. Now this, well, willow arch, because this willow here and that willow there will eventually be trained up and over and integrated, so there'll be nice big arch over here. So this is the car park, so as, you know, customers walk up towards the pods, they get to walk through a really nice willow arch. And this is, I think, the third year that last year was the third year that we put willow in. So you can see there's different types, there's all sorts of, you know, different varieties of willow. So yeah, some took, some didn't, but finally we're at the density that I think is pretty good here. This will work well, and you can see that this year, just this year's growth, of course, is going vertical like trees do. So they'll all be woven in together and they'll start to fuse nicely this year. So that's doing really well, pleased with that. You can see the blossom on the morello, that's really nice. So what else have we got? Oh yeah, I know what else to show you. Let's have a look. Ooh, that's a new addition as well. That is lovage. We put that in a few places. Really nice cooking herb, really beautiful, incredibly strong tasting. Don't need much, but this being our, you know, we walk this spot, you know, 5-6 times a day in summer. So if we need a little bit for food, see, there's another chunk. If we need another bit for food, it's really easy to pick up. Bluebells are in flower. That's always nice. So we have the snowdrops come through first, and then the daffodils and the bluebells. But this is the thornless blackberry, so that's doing really well. That's come through. In fact, you can see flowers just starting to form. So we might even have some fruit on that this year. But yeah, that'll come on more strongly over the next couple of years, and we can start training it up and through the Italian alder. Speaking of which, the Italian alder is, I mean, that must be easily 10 feet by now. And you see they're just starting to touch in most places, and then we get the odd one like this that we've had to replace. But you know, it's not going to be as big. And similarly there, we actually had one die in the spring, which is really weird, but that's back there, so I'm not going to walk back to show that. But yeah, you can see just how healthy they are. I really like the Italian alder, and that's the outer skin of the shelter belt, so that's doing really well. But what hasn't done as well, here we go, the kiwi. I think that we've lost all of the kiwi. I knew it was pushing it a bit, putting them out, but previously when I've kept them in, they've utterly failed. So I figured sticking them in the ground was the best bet. It's pushing it a little. It's still quite a young system, but I think in future I try getting these from a different producer as well, because I've bought these twice from the same company and both times they've failed, and I've had, yeah, anyway, I'll probably buy a more mature specimen further down the line from a different company. And yeah, see this one again. I think this was the female cultivar, and again that seems to have died. Now I wasn't expecting much from that one anyway. And this one actually might have some living buds lower down, but up top here on the ends that seems to be, yeah, it seems pretty dead. And this was one that we brought on from seed, so I can't blame anyone for that one but myself. But yeah, we'll see. Things still might come back from the base, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It's still quite a young system for such things. And the, where is it? Oh yeah, here. The Loganberry is coming on. So that'll be a nice interesting one. Really pleased with that. And this post here, for the last couple of years, has been home to a little family of starlings. So I don't know if you can hear them. They're being pretty quiet at the minute. But right down in the bottom of that hole, there's little chicks. They're a couple of weeks in now, so they're probably not that far off fledging. I'm going to get out of the way before the parent bird comes around because they find it really stressful. Right, what else to show you? Right, the pawpaw that I planted a couple of weeks ago. Two of them haven't done so good so far. See, that doesn't look particularly inspiring. Might be surprised yet, but that one hasn't done very well, and nor has this one. But the other two seem much better. So, as we go further along, you can see that that one is actually doing a bit better. And also this one. And these leaves are right out in the wind, so if they're surviving, I'm going to call that pretty good. It's their first time outside the greenhouse, really. Look at this though. Look at the blossom we're getting this year. Absolutely beautiful. That's an apple, and that's just stunning. So yeah, we might even get some fruit this year. We didn't at all last year. And a quick look at the Trifoliate Orange. You can see that's leafed out quite nicely down in there. So that's an interesting one. It's actually a lemon, not an orange. Sorry, it's an orange, but it behaves and tastes more like a lemon. It's not really an eating fruit, but a really interesting species. So I want some of that, and anything that's a good alternative to lemon, that'll do for me. Right, go over the toilet block. Here are the Espalier apples. Yeah, beautiful, eh? I bet these were absolutely free trees. So yeah, optimistic for a nice crop of apples this year. And also while I'm here, I've started with just a little bit of driftwood. So we're starting to get the honeysuckle put up and around it as well. Just, a bit of diversity. Well, I like having a bit of living biology on the front of buildings. And to show you the urine soak away from the urinal. I mean, you can see, if I stand back a bit, just how much greener it is around that. And we haven't had that many customers yet this year. It's still quite early in the season. We're only sort of just after the middle of May. But you can see what the Comfrey crowns are doing. That's actually about to explode into flowers. That'll be nice. So there's the other one. Yeah, we're putting decent sized crowns in. Yeah, you can see these are going to go gangbusters this year. So that'll be cool. It's a really nice yield to get. So yeah, that's that. Right, what's next? Ah yeah, my organic or non-organic mulch experiment. So you can see here where I use clay instead of anything else as a top mulch. It's really still quite effective. Now a lot of this willow's died, but that's not as an effect of the plant tag. Okay, that's not as a result of the mulch. These cuttings went in really late. It was a very, very dry year, and I wasn't expecting a huge amount to take anyway. It's just I might as well have stuck them in the ground as not. And as we get further down here, these are the earlier plantings. See, there's a bit more grass come through there. But as we get into the earlier stuff, you can see, so that took, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. So you can see the fresher stuff has done really well, like these here. You can see that's quite a run where they've all survived, which is impressive really, given the sort of year we had. So I'd say that's been a successful experiment. Whether it's done better than the other stuff, yeah, I mean, I couldn't really say, to be honest. It's done pretty much, you know, on a par, so I'm going to consider that a success. So that's cool. Right, while I'm up on the top swale, I thought I'd show you this. Look at these chives. They're huge. I mean, those leaves are more like onions. That's really impressive. So we're going to grow these out, going to keep a load of seed and plant another load. We've got a lot of chives just popped in the system, but usually they're sort of in the background until the flowers come along. But that's amazing. I'm really pleased with that. So that's the one for us, giant chives. So yeah, we're going to harvest those seed, plant them up by the 100 and spread them far and wide through the system as a nice perennial. They do really well on pond margins as well, so I'm going to do a certain amount of that. And I'd rather they were, you know, nice big ones like this. That's really pretty. Right, I'll show you the pond system. Actually, quickly, just before I nip over the pond, the swallow's nest. They made them so scarce as soon as I came along, but the swallows are back again this year. So that's cool. It's another good yield. That's part of our pest control strategy, and the the board is there just to try and avoid too much of this. So we're having to clean every single day. But you can also see little bits of mud that have been dropped. That's because they're actively working on their nest again. So it's really nice having the swallows back. Right, pond. So I think this pond is now in its 3rd year, and we've introduced a few things recently. So you can see the ramsons, the wild garlic, they've gone in really nicely. Yeah, they're all doing really well. Very, very happy with those. Beautiful plants. And actually, you know, you can't see it on sense it on the camera, of course, but really strong smell coming off from even now. Really beautiful. The oh, these are new as well, the water irises. So yeah, they were transplanted up here last year. They're doing really, really well. I'm pleased with that. Now let's see if I can get footage of, I'm going to throw shadow here, but there are fish in this little pond. Little tiny fish. So there we go. So there is just the odd one buzzing around. I'm not going to try and zoom in. Trying to catch a fish with a zoom is just going to drive me nuts, but yeah. Anyway, so there's a pretty decent breeding population of those little tiny fish, so they're thriving, they're doing really well. And also up here is the fig. Now, very exposed position, but it's from a very exposed position as a variety. So you can see it's just starting to bud out now. And I'd say we're what, the 19th of May? So a variety that buds out quite late, and that's the one for us. So I'm still really quite optimistic about how this is going to do. It's going to be really nice to have a fig on an exposed Scottish hillside. But if it does well, obviously we'll divide it up and take cuttings and so on and put it into a lot more places on the croft. But yeah, so that's doing well. But in more general terms, I'm really pleased with the pond. It's a massive haven for all sorts of species. I got wild ducks on here. There's the fish. There's, I mean, colossal amounts of pond life. It's been really interesting, bearing in mind that, you know, it doesn't take water from a stream or anything at all like that. It's just runoff, and it just holds on to major rain events and slowly releases them to the landscape. It's been a really nice system. I'm very, very pleased with this. And as time goes on, of course, I'm planning a lot more ponds. But yeah, this is probably more the blueprint for what we're going to be doing right now. Then I'm going to try and come down here nice and quiet. I'm going to try and get some footage of these fish. So if you see the little tiny fish just darting around doing their thing. They tend to knock around in schools. There's sometimes 30, 40, 50 of them together just drifting through the system. See, there's a little bit of algae building up, a little bit of pondweed. That's perfectly natural at this time of year. Most ponds go through a little phase of that in the spring, and people panic and throw in all sorts of products and treatments and all sorts. If you look at blanket weed or pond algae or whatever online, you'll find all sorts of products, to destroy it and get rid of it and all the rest of it. It's just a perfectly natural system. It's human human perception of what a pond should look like is the only thing that's getting in the way there. This is an entirely natural ecosystem, so it might not happen forever. Things might reach their balance and so on, and that's fine too. But in the meantime, no, I'm not gonna project my idea of what a pond should look like. I'll let nature deal with that itself. But so those little fish are doing really well, so I'm taking that as a really good sign. It's really becoming quite a balanced ecosystem. I see all kinds of things in this pond. The heron comes in now and again, so that'll be doing its bit to take some of the larger fish out. But they're quite a small species. They only grow to maybe 3-4 inches long maximum. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch this develop over time. I got more plans for this yet. I got a few things that I want to integrate into it. Fairly small, nothing major, but yeah, it's a beautiful system, and I like coming up here and sitting. So I'm probably going to integrate a seat into this pond at some point, just so I can sit here and watch the pond life do its thing. It's really nice. I've had a few people ask about the currant trees that I went in, the big huge currant bushes that we were given by a neighbour. And you can see they're doing really well. They're getting blown around a little bit. It's quite breezy today, but here we go. You can see that that's got fruit actually forming, so really pleased with that. So we'll actually get a decent crop of blackcurrants this year, but they're not all as good. These were among the healthiest, but you can see, I mean, these are substantial plants, and they're only just getting started really. So here's one that isn't doing quite as happily, but even if the tops get crisped, and even if the tops die off, the roots are still down there doing their thing, and it'll regenerate nicely from the base. It's still a big, strong, aggressive plant. But most of them, I mean, you can see just how many of them there are. So I think that's been blown over by the wind and has thrived there. So that's interesting. And then, actually, it's a small leaf lime. I knew there was one up here. I'd wondered where that was. I might even move that, but not today. But I mean, you can see, that's 5 foot high. These things are amazing. So we'll give them this year to do their thing, and then we'll probably take them off quite low down and let them regenerate. It might slow them up for a couple of years until they really start producing again, but they'll be a much more wind hardy thing as a result. So here, for example, you can see the wind's just taken that. So I'll take that off. A bit late in the year for cuttings, but there we go. Chances are it'll take. So here's an example. It's got buds on, it's still doing its thing. So I think that'll come. It's still nice green sappy wood. But I mean, you can see just how well they are. So I'm really pleased with them. Some of the others were cuttings rather than plants on their own roots, which these were. But most of them have taken, and even the ones that seem like they haven't will probably regenerate from the base. They're absolutely amazing plants. They're so fast to colonize an area. Let's have a look. So nothing from this yet, but it probably will. I seem to remember that was a fairly denuded bit of root. But I mean, even with all this big, long, whippy growth out in the wind, they're still doing incredibly well. And yeah, that's a lot of fruit already, you can see, that we're going to get from these this year, and that's in their first year in the ground. So quite pleased with that. And look, the Comfrey's doing its thing. So this is a more established standard Comfrey. The colour, that's beautiful. There we go. That purple, that's lovely. So this is that's a red leg red currant. So I need to complete this row at some point. But yep. So what's next on the list? Back at the pond again for a sec. I'll show you this while I'm here. This plant here is, I mean, I'm winging this, bear in mind, I haven't didn't intend to film this. So this is, I think one of its names is Australian stonecrop. It's a massively invasive plant of streams, rivers, ponds and all sorts, and you can see just how aggressive it is. All of this material here just came out of here. It's virtually impossible to eradicate. A lot of the recommendation is to, if you get an invasion of this in your pond, fill the pond in, start again. Not doing that. That's wrong thinking in my opinion. It's virtually impossible to eradicate with herbicides, even if we're going to go that route, which I won't. I'd rather fill the pond in than you know, spray herbicides all over the place, but so that's not an option for us. Repeated digging out can work, and so can tarping out. Both are options. You can see I've started digging out here and it comes out as a mat complete with the roots. So I will actually get a certain amount of water clear, and then I'll probably stop, because we're going to go with a biological solution for this that's better than tarping, well, I think, and so on. But this needs to be eradicated and needs to happen fairly soon, because obviously we don't want this to spread to anywhere else, because currently we've got a little bit around the edges in this pond. I'd rather, I think, just control it manually, come through and dig some out on that pond, but it needs to be eradicated. It's a much more of a problem in other ponds. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say too much, because, you know, I've got to get this system in place. But I do have a plan for getting rid of it. But, you know, I'm showing you the good and the bad. You know, it's, Insta life is a very real phenomenon. But now I want to show things as they actually are. And this isn't something we introduced, of course. It's come in with a nursery plant at some point. And there's limited options for that, really, as to where it's come from. So that's disappointing. But this used to be sold until recently by nurseries. So a lot of pond plant nurseries do have this, you know, as an issue on their site. So they shouldn't really be selling plants with this as a potential side effect. But there we go. I can't even be sure which one it is. So it's going to have to be taken care of. It's going to have to be taken out completely and permanently. But yeah, that's unfortunate. But there we go. It's these things do happen, and it's a lesson to myself, really. I should have a quarantine area, a small quarantine pond that new plants go for a year or two, just till I know they're completely safe to go into the system. Right. Oh, let's show you this. I haven't even done a video on this. I think I've mentioned it in one video. But this is... Right. We're into the area here where the new pond is being dug by hand. So there's the keyway for that. I might as well do an update on that, I suppose. That's the keyway. You can see, as I've been harvesting clay, I'm still going with it. It's I've got clay exposed here for doing a bit more excavation, and I've got the pipes laid out more or less where they're going to be going. I'm playing with a new system there for a new type of monk spillway option. So that'll be fairly interesting, I think. But where I've used the topsoil there to remove, to reinforce this swale, we planted this. Now this is perennial mountain rye. So that's a perennial grain that takes no inputs. In fact, it prefers fairly infertile soils, so we won't give it any major feed. And that should live for 2, 3, up to 8 years, and give us a perennial grain and some straw every year. So that's a nice crop to have. And from here, of course, we'll distribute it into other areas as well. This is just to give us a lot more seed to work with rather than the packet that we bought. Every cane here is a blackcurrant. We really like blackcurrants. But oh yeah, look, there's another little chive plant. So cool, can't have too many chives. So I say they're dotted all over the place, really. Here's another one. There's another chive plant. So yeah, you can't have too many chives. There's other bits and pieces. I think there is all sorts of stuff on this swale, but they're little bits and pieces. There's no overstory trees as yet. In fact, this was originally used as a test system for a type of willow that we decided not to go with. So that's all been dug out, and I know what I'm going to be planting here over time, but in the meantime, because top fruit trees, they're expensive. Apple trees, really pricey. So yeah, we're not going with that yet, but in the meantime we can grow other things out on it and test them and so on. Because even, you know, tree systems, they're not forever, you know, they can be used as a virtually permanent agriculture, but they're not necessarily. You know, trees can be moved and you can take land through succession yourself quite easily. Right, this is the hand dug swale. Now you can see the sea buckthorn doing really well. As far as we can tell, most of these are female. So you can see they seem to be coming along and thriving quite well. And there's also some currants just between, and again, these won't be in forever. It's just, you know, with these being placed at the spacing they are, we might as well have a few years of a different crop between them as well. So I'll not walk the whole swale, but you get the idea. It functions really well. We've got that system now extends right to the end, although the swale doesn't, but the tree, the plants do. So we've got sea buckthorn all along this, and these are the large fruited genetics that we bought. So hopefully we'll get a couple of new varieties that are suited to the environment, suited to the climate that we're in now, and to give us a much higher fruit size, a much larger fruit than we can get from foraging the wild ones. So really interested to see how these do. This is the first pond that I dug on site ever. This was my first intentional pond, and again we've had the same problem with invasives. So I've been pulling it out by the ton, and you can see, and this is like a month ago that these things were dug out, so that's how much it's rotted down in that time. I mean, it's a huge amount. It's a vast amount of biomass underneath. You can see it's still quite healthy looking, but I'm going to have to put it all into one lump, I think, and get a nice hot compost heap and rot it down. And there's still more to go, so I was doing it with wellies on, and I really need to get in there with you know, something that I don't mind getting wet, and just commit to being wet up to my waist and rip it all out, because even with the biological solutions that I've got in mind, I think removing most of it by hand is an excellent start, just to give other plants a chance to try and cope a little, because it'll entirely choke out plants. You couldn't see any water when I started pulling this out. But and this pond here was my first real wake-up call to, hang on, you know, what is this plant? This is a major issue, and it's come on far more aggressively this year again. So it was definitely the right decision, but it can be controllable. I will get it done, and in the meantime, of course, I've put things like the frog bit back in to do their thing, because I really like frog bit. I want to have a lot more frog bit in the system. But yeah, other plants are finally starting to get a chance to do their thing, because they've been choked out. It must be a couple of years now since that really started to take foothold. So yeah, again, showing it as it is. I suppose I should do a bit of an update on the system generally. You know, with all the trees that went in, you can see they're starting to leaf out now. Just how many trees there are, all down through this system, and I can't see many that have died. And of course, there's the pre-existing trees that we put in. So that's very, very cool. And this is the grand fir, so that's come on just this spring. You can see this year's growth's looking really well. But, that's really nice. That's the first aid tree, so I'm really optimistic and hopeful that they'll do well. Here's one that went in as a giant cutting of those currants. And the tips here seem, yeah, see, that hasn't made it, but that has. And if it's got any sort of life in it at all, it'll regenerate from the base anyway. So I'm really pleased with that. Actually, look at this. Yeah, they're really well. Bear in mind, last year was a really bad drought, so they survived. That's the important thing. They didn't do a great deal last year. In fact, I lost them at one point. Even with these canes on, I couldn't find them. But really pleased with that. That's great, because these things are meant to fly up. So that's cool. See, that's another one that was put in as a 3-foot cutting and has pulled through just fine. Here we've got a wild pear, Pyrus communis. That's survived, that's doing well. So we've got, I don't know how many of these, there's loads of them in the system. Right, next. So I'm down in the duck pond, paddy, you know, the wetland filter whole system. So you can see the Trifoliate starting to come back, the greater reed mice, really aggressively. Very pleased with that. That's been an amazing crop, and we're going to do a lot more with that moving forward. But let's have a look here. See if I can spot one. Oh, here we go. There's two that have actually come through. Look, that a teeny tiny asparagus. So I think the wind's got to that, or something's had it anyway. So, oh, look at that. Oh, oh, beautiful. So yeah, won't be doing that a great deal until they're established, but yeah, that's the asparagus plants that I've grown out polyculturally. And then that's Stella, that tree. But look at this one. This is Espalier Apple, which, you know, from a fairly windy location. This was a gift from a friend when we moved as a moving present, and look how beautiful that is. So hopefully get some fruit out of that this year, because last year we got none. These need to be trained this winter. I'll do a video on that at the time, but I'm not doing it at this time of year. But yeah, that's doing really well, and I've already harvested a load of comfrey from around the base of this already. This is the willow that I planted down on the septic ditch. So this is the human waste biomass system, and you can see just how healthy they are. I mean, there were long cuttings going in, but they're, yeah, extremely happy, doing really well, and really hoping to get some nice big ones off these this year, because I've got a lot of projects that need a lot of willow. So I'm very, very interested to see how they do. And yeah, very cool. Wish I'd done it 2-3 years ago, but that's always the way with tree systems. Always wish you planted them years ago. But there we go. It's yep, another update. So we're down now into the shelter belt of the alder. So this is their second year in the ground. You can see how healthy they are. They'll be up above waist height this year probably, and within 2-3 years they'll be up and taller than me. It's going to give us a huge amount of shelter, because of course these extend all the way around the bottom of the site. And yeah, that's what they did. And in the previous year, I mean, these were healthy going in. I was really happy with them. Was it Hedges Direct? I think we buy a lot of stuff from them, and we've always been really happy with the quality. But these are the ones that went in more recently this winter as bare root, and yep, I can't see a single one that's failed. Oh, maybe this one. Let's have a look. Yeah, that might have had it, but that's fine. You lose the odd one. They went in as bare root, and quite often these regenerate from the base anyway. But the ones that are older, you can see how aggressively they're coming on. So yeah, that's going to be a really nice, really big boost to the system in terms of shelter, because well, you can tell from the audio there's a fair bit of wind today, and it's not too bad, but yeah, the more shelter we can give stuff, the better. But of course, with these coming from a diversity of sources as well, it'll give us a certain amount of genetic diversity in the varieties that we got on site, rather than all of them having come from the same supplier. So yeah, that's the alder. Down in the chicken forage system, looking at the Siberian pea shrub, and that's probably the healthiest one we've got. I'm very pleased with that. They haven't all taken. Some of them look like this one that just hasn't made it, but that's okay. I've got hundreds of them in. Oh, actually that looks like living wood, so might be okay. But yeah, it's not, you know, flying and thriving up, but I've got hundreds of them in the tree nursery this year, so we'll see how they do. And yeah, that's beautiful. So yeah, things are coming along. That's, by the way, me not entirely certain why that is, so not about to talk. It's probably a Juneberry, to be honest. I seem to think that's what went in here. So that's a Saskatoon. But you can see this dwarf Comfrey is really coming along aggressively. Loaded with pollinators. Very, very cool. They're very happy. There's a lot of bees down here, and this will continue to spread. I think this is its second, maybe third year. Yeah, look at the caterpillar. That's cool. So yeah, we get a lot of biodiversity now. You're really starting to see the difference on the site. And bear in mind, this is our 4th year here. It's impressive just what a difference land can, you know, just how much land can change in a short period of time. But you can see just how much of the Comfrey there is now. That's spreading out. Now I could divide this up and spread it further, which I might do. Put them under the actually, come on, live on camera, let's go and have a look how this Morello's doing, because it was half dead going in, but we got it cheap. So was it a worthwhile gamble? Let's have a look. yeah, it's still living wood, so I wouldn't rule it out yet, but certainly, yeah, all the buds have failed, but they were already on their way at the point that it went in the ground. So it might well come back, you know, it'll lose a few branches. Oh, here we go. No, a little green bud. So there we are. Yay! That was because even if a single branch succeeds, oh, here we go. No, there's quite a bit. Look, there we go. Yay! Another good morello. We love morello because for an understory tree, which is what they've gone in as, I mean, it's been our most reliable cherry crop, a morello. I mean, they're classed as a sour cherry, but they're not really. They're different from other sour cherries. They're really, really tasty. One of my favourite fruit. So yeah, it's because I'm not keen that much on fruit. I'm not a big fruit eater, but when it's fresh from the bush, warm and sweet and beautiful. Yes, I eat a lot of fruit when it's fresh. I don't like fruit from the supermarket. It's not the best. This is a whole different experience. So yeah, and there's the monkey puzzles. Oh, that's giving a bit of help. But so yeah, they're coming on. Right, anyway, I don't want to get sucked into just the one system, but yeah, you can see just how well things are coming along. And I think that's a Antonovka apple. So yeah, they're coming on really well. I can't see a single one that's failed. So right, so another system updated. Right, one more system while I'm down here. I'm quite low on battery, but I'll show you this. We are opposite the house. So this is actually a council-owned hedgerow, but the council haven't got the resources to be, you know, replanting trees and hedgerows and so on. So we're basically just planting things back that would have been here that have died and so on. So here we've got hawthorn, which is the backbone of all the hedges roundabouts, and elder, which again is, you know, used really extensively. But underneath that, you can see it's a bit of a nettly nightmare at the minute. So we put a load of comfrey in. And you can see how aggressive they're coming on. So this is something we can come through, we can side, and we can take the nettles and the comfrey, and we can put them into you know, a water, rot them down, and make a really nice feed. So it's a nice resource that we can get from it. And we also have a few other things in here. Let's have a look, see if I can find one that's out in the open. Here we go. So that is Aleagnus ebbingi. It's Ebbing silverberry, and it's still got its leaves from last year, this one. Yeah, most of them are dropping their leaves at this point and growing their new ones, but that's going to be an evergreen core for this whole section, because when we got the winds coming in from the west in winter and hammering straight into the front of the house here, the front windows, if you put your hand on them, you actually feel the glass flex with the wind. I don't like that, so I'm going to put in a nice shelter belt here, and you can see just how many of them there are. You know, that's a lot of trees, a lot of shrubs, and comfrey as an understory. Now, we had a really, really seriously aggressive winter, and some of them in some of the other places, even though they're a wind-fast species, are struggled a little bit. But these ones, being that bit more protected, have done quite well. So you can see there, that's the new leaves coming out. But yeah, the comfrey, this is its second, sometimes third year in some of these. They're coming along, and we've got all sorts. So that's a nice purple variety. We've also got some yellow. Anytime we come across a new cultivar of comfrey, we put some in here. So even within the comfrey species here, there we go. So that's a nice golden one. Beautiful. I really like comfrey. Never mind all its uses. It's a really attractive plant. I like it. Oh, and then we've got, that's a wild rose. You know, there's all sorts in here, but it's mostly the same old hedgerow species that exist everywhere, you know, in this area anyway. And yeah, you can see how beautiful that's going to come on this year. So that is this block of shelter belt, and I think that's mostly it for all the stuff I'm going to show today. I am very low on battery, so on that basis, right, I'm going to leave this video here.